Little bit of a late video here today, but a huge situation has unfolded here on YouTube, and I'm involved in it somewhat, like in a very minor role because of some tweets, and well, I mean, I'll get to that here a little bit later in the video, but TLDR, if you're not aware, H3H3 Productions dropped a massive video on Keemstar today called the Content Nuke on Keemstar. It's over 45 minutes long, it has almost 500,000 views as of me even recording this audio. By the time you see this video, it'll probably either be peaking out at 1 million or straight up surpassed it. The video is exploding. It's causing like this huge thing here on YouTube. It's almost like a content cop, I will say. Title obviously kind of plays on that whole thing there, but the video, in my opinion, is either, depending, I guess, on your whole perception of the video, is either really good or it's just another run-of-the-mill anti-Keemstar video. And before I even get any further into this video, because I know there's going to be people watching this video just to say that I'm defending Keemstar and to try and shit on me, and because H3 quote tweeted me a little bit out of context, that's acceptable though. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But if you're looking for like a straight up criticism of Keemstar, just kind of layering down all the shit that he's done, just going straight at his neck for all of the inexcusable, to put it very simply, things that he's done, then this is a good video. And the production quality's great and everything. I can't sit here and pretend like it's not, but if you're looking for a video that's gonna body Keemstar in his career and is presenting all of this bombshell information that nobody ever really knew beforehand, not necessarily the video that you were really expecting. Now, this is kind of the side that I was on when I saw this whole thing, because I would think H3H3 being as big of a channel as that is, they would probably have some more inside direct sources and could be able to figure out things a little bit more than I would, like, maybe me could do. Maybe it's my fault for actually, like, kind of expecting that, I don't know, but it just depends on how you look at things, right? And I think that's how a lot of this whole situation really comes down. And before I even get any further into the video, like, I'm not gonna sit here and try and defend Keemstar, because for some reason people have the perception that just because I think Ethan did 2 things wrong in this video that, like, I'm standing up for Keemstar. And once again, it's because my tweet was kind of taken out of context in this whole thing, and that's what I'm going to explain here since people have been asking me on Twitter to do so. So I tweeted out talking about the video, right? And I said, I don't care what Keemstar has done in the past, which has been completely overcovered because, I mean, there's literally thousands of videos probably on Keemstar at this point on YouTube talking about most of the same points that Ethan made in this video. But going after someone's sponsors and blaming them for the suicide of Etika is fucking disgusting. It downplays Etika's personal issues and quite literally puts a body on someone's name. If you don't know by this point, there is a crowd of people who believe that Keemstar is either directly responsible for Etika killing himself, or that he is at least a person who played some part in it. Now, when it comes down to that, I don't think that he's directly responsible for it. I get that he said a lot of really bad shit around that time, and he had him on his show and everything right after he got out of the mental institution and whatnot, and he played the whole thing up for the camera to a certain extent, but I don't think that makes him directly responsible for it, because it's not like Etika was like a perfectly okay person. He very clearly had a lot of mental issues that he was dealing with, and it's a sad situation. Rest in peace to Etika, but I can understand a little bit more the argument that Keemstar at least played a part in it, or that he, you know, kind of, I guess, made a spectacle of it. I can understand that argument. I think that's a lot easier to actually make a point on than just saying he's flat out responsible. Now, I think personally it's pretty obvious that I wasn't saying quite literally that I don't give a shit what Keemstar has done in the past, and that instead I was making a point about the new video that's come out that isn't just saying the same thing that's been said about Keemstar 90 different times. It's just simply pointing out the shit that I found wrong with Ethan's video, which I think is a completely acceptable thing to do. Because I don't think that even with someone like Keemstar, that going after his sponsors is necessarily the best thing to do. I just don't agree with that. I don't think that's the right thing to do in these kinds of situations. If you want to shit on him and make all these points against him, go right on ahead. I agree on most of those points, actually. That's the funny thing. Like the whole RuneScape guy being accused of being a pedophile and things like that. Like, I agree on those kinds of things. And that's the whole thing about this, is that I'm being accused of defending Keemstar at all costs. I have no interest in defending Keemstar at all costs. I've never spoken to Keemstar directly. He's not paying me to say anything good about him. It's just simply that I'm not gonna jump on this hate train and pretend like this was a perfect video and that I agreed with everything done in it. It's not that I don't give a shit that Keemstar has done all these things and that I don't even agree that he's done some messed up things. It's that I don't think that fighting back with that tenacity to, like, kind of make fun of his sponsors and, like, kind of shit on them, I don't think that that's necessarily the right thing to do. Now, H3 responded to this. Quote, "I don't care about false allegations of pedophilia or felonies, doxing, swatting, belittling mental illness, but Ethan has gone too far making fun of Gfuel." Well, from his perspective, I can probably understand, honestly, why he thought that that's what I was literally saying, but it wasn't, so the tweet's not really valid. Anyway, how does Gfuel still sponsor this guy, by the way?
Keemstar's got a bottle of Gfuel somewhere in his house that's actually a Horcrux. How is Gfuel still sponsor this guy, by the way?
At that point, you're not making fun of Gfuel, quote unquote. You're asking a legitimate question on how this company still sponsors him considering the shit that he's done wrong in the past. You're basically calling a company out for sponsoring him in this video. I mean, since we're taking shit being said literally here, and we're not thinking that there could potentially be any sort of, like, meaning behind literally what is put on the screen, there we go, right? And for the people who don't understand it, because there are people who have actually brought up, like, how do they still sponsor him knowing what he's done? Gfuel is a business, and at the end of the day, let's be honest, Keemstar makes Gfuel a stupid amount of money. They don't give a shit about stuff that happened 4 or 5 or 3 or 8, however many years ago, depending on the situation. They don't care about that because it's not affecting their profit in any way. As a matter of fact, by sponsoring the person who did that, they're making even more money. The dude has a fucking flavor of their drink named after him. That's how much money he makes them. The business hasn't been getting bad press for it. I mean, this is probably honestly the biggest instance of someone actually like saying, what the fuck is Gfuel doing for sponsoring the guy who does all this, that I've ever even seen. So I don't think it's really a hard concept to grasp. And I mean, that's whatever. But once again, we're taking shit out of context a little bit. I can, I guess, understand from his perspective why he thought that I literally meant that, but it's not, so. H3 also went on to say, "And I most certainly did not blame Keemstar for Etiquette's death. I think he created an extremely toxic environment for him and others." Now, let me be very clear here. Okay? No, you're right. You didn't directly come out and say Keemstar is directly responsible for Etiquette's death. What you did instead was make a whole 20-minute segment in your video dedicated to, in all reality, linking everything Keemstar has basically ever said to or about Etika together, and basically stepping as close as you could to saying that he was at least responsible in some way to it as you possibly could without just coming out and saying it. But here's my entire take on that thing, right? I don't understand at this point why Etika, his death, is being used to martyr a point against somebody on fucking YouTube.com. Etika's death was tragic, and it shook the entire YouTube community. It wasn't an easy thing to watch, that entire situation delve to the point that it did, to where they quite literally found him in the waters of New York, right? I don't agree with turning that tragic situation into a fucking weapon against somebody in a YouTube drama video. I think that Etika's death and his life in general was worth more than that. Because let's be clear about this H3 video. He only made this video because he doesn't like Keemstar, and they've been kind of bickering back and forth on Twitter. This video was not made for any other reason, and with that being said, this whole Etika segment was made for no other reason. You could have made just as strong a point against Keemstar without involving Etika in any way. As a matter of fact, this video has been made by hundreds if not thousands of other people before Etika passed away, and that's the whole point. This video was not made with good interest in heart, in my opinion. If it was, Ethan would have been trying to eradicate Keemstar months if not years ago. If Ethan thought Keemstar was just a bastard and a horrible person this whole time, how come this video didn't come out in 2017 or 18? But it only came out after they argued on Twitter, and after all this tension built up between the two of them for however long. And I don't think that it's correct to bring a man who tragically killed himself into that mix. Regardless of how you feel on the situation, even if you felt that Keemstar was directly responsible for it. What is Etika's life a fucking poker chip in this whole thing? Why can't Etika just rest in peace? Why can't we just all say that it was a tragic situation and stop using his name like fucking tug of war in YouTube videos in which we denounce other people? I'm not here to tell you how to feel on that situation. If you want to feel that Keemstar is responsible for it, go ahead. But I think the last thing that should be done is to make that half of your video that is 45 minutes long and then not directly say it, when the entire part that you've made here is essentially you trying to tie it all together and, I would say, insinuate it to a certain extent. But when it comes down to it, This whole fucking drama between these two doesn't matter whatsoever. Like I said, it's the result of arguing on Twitter. And it's not like H3 is the best person on YouTube either. I mean, fucking Gokanaru made such a good video about him that H3 had to go on his podcast and directly address it. Then it was magically taken down recently by YouTube due to guidelines. And there's a little bit of a conspiracy running that Ethan might have actually been the person who somehow got that video deleted due to a meeting with Susan Wojcicki, which personally, I don't necessarily think that's true. I don't really agree with that. I think that's a bit far-fetched because YouTube doesn't give a shit about YouTubers' insight any other time. I don't think they would in this specific case. But this fucking petty drama doesn't matter whatsoever, and it's devolving to this point where we're using a dead man as a poker chip to try and outplay the opponent. And then we're twisting words a little bit out of context, whether intentionally or not on Twitter, to try and satisfy this ridiculous point. I mean, is Keemstar guilty of pretty much all of the shit in the video? Except for the Etika thing, in my opinion. I mean, I think that's something that should be left out of the debate entirely because, I mean, rest in peace, Etika, right? But yeah, there's plenty of evidence behind it all. I don't agree with him doing it. Now, all that's going to happen from this entire video now is Keemstar is going to make 2 videos about it responding. It's going to give him views and it's going to give him money, which Keemstar likes, obviously. That's why he runs Drama Alert. And then Ethan also got to say what he wanted to say, and he also got views and money. So it's a very pointless drama that's just devolving into a total, I would say, win-win situation for everybody because once again, Keemstar is not just going to disappear tomorrow because H3 made a video about him. He survived the content cop and everything else. I'm pretty sure he's okay. And H3 is going to be fine. Keemstar is probably not going to ruin his career. I would be absolutely stunned if something like that happened. But this whole thing is just, it's weird, man. It doesn't really make much sense. And I think that even though Keemstar has done a lot of messed up things, I think it's perfectly valid to call out H3 for doing things that you disagree with too. Like, you don't have to address the entire video when making a specific point. Like, if you want to say, I don't agree with H3H3 basically questioning why Gfuel has any association with Keemstar, you don't have to then preface that by saying, well, you guys know about all the other shit that's been covered for 8 years now, right, too? About how Keemstar did all this and did all that? It's like, we already know. At least the people who are, like, into YouTube and we're kind of in the know, we already know most of this shit. You don't have to directly address that every time you talk about a situation. So with that being said, that's pretty much my take on the entire thing. Feel free to let me know how you feel down below. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and thank you to my channel members. Your support helps my channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, talking about the Content Nuke, and signing out.